Hey guys, Todd with 306 Foxbody. Here's what I've been up to with the 95. I was cruising with the car one night. My buddy Trevor, he's got about a 2016 C7 Corvette, and he was out cruising, and he said, hey, let's meet in a parking lot. So we went and cruised into this parking lot. We shut the car off. We bullshit for a few minutes, and I went to go start the car, and it wouldn't start. It's always been kind of hard starting. Like the starter would be struggling a bit, but the car has never left me stranded, to say the least. But this time, I was already cruising with it for probably 15, 20 minutes, so it's not like the battery wasn't getting charged. But with my gauges, the voltmeter was always reading a little bit low. The oil pressure was kind of reading on the high side, and I figured like this car should have good oil pressure. And fuel gauge read good, and temperature gauge always read on the high side. So, that tells me that something could be out of whack. But after having to push start the car, and if any of your friends have a C7 Vet or something that's got a built-in dash cam, don't let them stand back and film you. Thank God he erased it. But there I was pushing my car. Got it going quite easily. Cruised around for another 10, 15 minutes. Went into another parking lot. I figure it's got to start. It's charging. I have a little voltmeter that I got hooked up. I could just put it into a cigarette lighter. And it was always charging at that like 12.3. Definitely not as high as it should be. But it was always charging, so I wasn't too worried. And I think on times it got up to like 12.6, 12.7. So I'm just kind of going off memory here. But anyways, I thought it's time to do some poking around. I thought, well, my alternator's brand new, but that doesn't really mean anything. So I did a bit of research. Here's what I found. I'm going to fire the car up here. I'll show you what the gauges are doing. So hopefully what I show you might keep somebody from being stranded in a parking lot or out who knows where. Lucky with the 5-speed, I can push start it. Okay, I got the front end in the air just because I was working under the car, but check this out. Okay, the motor's still cold. I got a hunting idle till it warms up just a little bit, then it'll level out, so we'll wait for that to happen. It won't take long. Okay, we got her leveled out now. So there's my voltmeter. I'll just rev it up a little bit. Oil pressure looks good. Coolant will come up, and that's been staying fairly normal. I'll get my voltmeter hooked up here. So I was concerned because the car was hard starting. Maybe I got a bad ground. Maybe I got a bad alternator. I don't know if it's charging. The factory gauges, they only tell you so much. It sort of gives you a range. When they're working good and they're pointing in the direction you want it to, you're happy. But check this out. I'm at 12.11 volts. I'll fire the car up. So it's showing it's charging on the low side. My oil pressure looks like it's, it's okay, it's good. Then I took my booster cable. I thought I'm going to check, see how the ground is. And I noticed grounding out the alternator. So I shouldn't be getting a spark from the ground. So I ended up doing this. I made up a ground strap that goes down to my frame. I'll hook this back to the back of the alternator. So I'll hook that up. We'll see what that does. Just looking at my gauges. So you can see my oil pressure is about halfway. The alternator is charging, but on the low side. I'm going to hook this up and see what happens. So this wire is actually hot. We're at 12.96. I'm going to hook this up. 13.25. I'm going to shut it off. I'll hook up that ground and then we'll see what happens. I made this cable up just from some welding cable, got some ends, soldered them on, and it just goes down. And you can see right to the bracket, right in the center of the picture. That's where it goes to the frame. So there's actually a spot right on the back of the alternator that a ground can go. If this was a 94 Mustang GT with a 302, then there's actually a bracket that goes on there. But even though with it or without it, you should still have a decent ground. And I do have a factory style ground strap that goes close to the oil pressure sending unit. I'll show you where that is. Right there, that black strip there. This actually goes from my frame rail right down. This is a ground strap as well too. But it goes right in here. I got it hooked up. It goes to the frame rail. If there's any other grounds that are missing, I don't know which one it is. But anyways, I'll get rid of these booster cables. We were at the 12.9s without the booster cables hooked up. Now I've got the ground strap on. I'll fire it up. See, my oil pressure is reading low, but up there I got a mechanical gauge on 60 psi. My voltmeter is maybe a sliver higher than what it was. But what happens is, now with the ground strap on, my temperature gauge actually reads lower. When it first happened, the swing between the gauges was even greater than what it is now. It's not that much. But let's check out my voltage. That's totally where it should be. 14.1. The oil pressure is definitely good. But up there, it would never reflect 54 psi. Tomorrow I'm going to drive it a bit, because as I was driving it, I'd have my oil pressure dip down even lower. And now that I've got a mechanical gauge on, I can confirm. Now with a better ground, it's reading lower. But that's where we're at with it. I'm going to drive it, see what my oil pressure is going to do. Yeah, I'm still at about 53, 54 psi, and it's not totally hot yet, but it is warm. Anyways, that's where we're at with the voltage. We got that fixed. If anybody finds that their car is hard starting and maybe not charging enough, yeah, just check your grounds. You know, and obviously it could affect your gauges too. Next thing I'm going to do is I got a wiring diagram. There is a couple grounds underneath the dash. I'm going to clean those and see what that gives us. But yeah, no more hard starting. One other thing I did, I'll show you guys. I also took the original wire for the alternator. It's in this harness. And I capped it off and I used a 4 gauge. I made a new wire. And I go to a fuse. I think I'm going to put a little bit bigger fuse in there, maybe a 200, but this seems to work. And that goes to the fuse box. That should just slide up. And then this goes up to the battery. So battery to here, it joins and then goes to the alternator. So what Ford did in the harness right down here, they actually had the wire split and it goes to 2 fusible links and then back into one common eyelet to go onto that stud on the side of the fuse box. And there's likely a reason for it, but it's old wiring. Let's face it, it's an older car. And that's why I put this new power lead in with this heavier fuse. Just something to have fresh wire and possibly less resistance in the wire as well. As a quick test, put your booster cable on here and attach it to the motor, and if you get a spark or you see your voltage goes up, then you know you're onto something. So tomorrow we'll take this thing for a spin. I want to see what the oil pressure is going to do long term. It's getting colder out here. I got the big door open because I don't want to gas myself out, but we've actually had some coyotes lurking in the area. And yeah, I actually had one at the car lot the other day, right in front of right on the lot and across the main street in the city I live in. And that kind of worries some people. This thing was pretty mangy looking, and so I hope I don't let them in anyways. Just one little thing made a big difference on this car, and I just want to get the gauges to read right, because the temperature gauge was always reading high. Now it's reading low with the ground hooked up. The oil pressure gauge was reading high. Now it's reading lower, but the mechanical gauge confirms that I actually have good oil pressure like I thought I would. And the voltmeter is reading higher, which it should. So yeah, there is changes just from that one ground. That's the first thing I noticed. And let's face it, if you have a better ground, your sensors are going to work properly. And like anything else, a ground, you got to have a good grounds on everything. And the good thing is, it's pretty much free to do. So that's why it's worth looking at. Anyways, that's kind of what I've been up to. Good thing I was able to push start this thing, and we got her going again. That's my update, and I hope everybody's doing well. As we're getting closer to winter here, I'll be packing the cars away. I'll be bringing the 86 in here. That'll be my winter project. We'll be doing some rear control arms. I want to get the suspension back to how I used to have it when I raced. I want much better traction. I've got some good control arms on it now, but the suspension geometry is just out. We're toying with the idea of going to a different transmission, maybe a T56 Magnum. That's kind of a wish list thing. And we're going to be hopefully working back on our intercooled intake manifold. Guys, I've been thinking about this intake all summer long, and I know the car needs it. It's just something I want to do, and put the air conditioning back into it. So hopefully I can get more progress on that this winter. But anyways, hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.